Hi there, it's Steve from Steve Stereo Service, and I'm going to make a couple videos, probably split it up into two parts, part 1 and 2, for removing the vinyl wrap from an old receiver case, adding some real wood veneer, and then the finishing process of how I do French polishing and the final coats to make it look like it was sprayed without having to have a spray rig. I've got one, but I don't use it. I used it years ago. But anyway, if you have any ideas you're watching through this, please send me a comment. Let me know if I could do something different, quicker, faster, easier, simpler. I think this is the process I use, and I hope it helps y'all. And let's get into it. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to Mend It Mark YouTube channel. I've learned so much from Mark over the past years, or a couple years really. And so Mark, thanks for your help with everything. And if y'all haven't checked out his channel, it's Mend It Mark on YouTube, MENDITMARK with no spaces. And if you haven't seen him, or I would highly recommend you subscribe. Just some really fantastic information in a very entertaining way. Okay, here's the finished case with the top coat on it, and this is the amp it goes to. It's the Kenwood KR2600 from 1977 through 1979 they made them. And anyway, I completely recapped it, new filter caps, all the electrolytic caps. I replaced some of the audio, the small UF like 1 through 10 I replaced with WEMA caps that were in the audio path. And one thing I do, I just write on here what I did with the date. So in 40 years from now, if somebody wants to rebuild this again, of course I doubt the parts will be available. Anyway, it may help. And it's a pretty nice face, pretty clean. Oh, I also, it had these little, screw on, the little small little speaker cable connectors. I replaced those with the 5-way binding post, otherwise known as banana jacks. And cleaned it up. It's in really good shape. It sounds really nice. I don't know what it is about these 70s amps, but it just sounds so nice. I mean, I've got a more modern 100-watt receiver that I normally listen to here in the shop, and this is 20 watts per channel, and it sounds, I can clearly tell a difference. It just sounds so nice. It's just a more pleasant sound to listen to. It's hard to describe, but it has lots of punch, lots of bass, but the highs are not harsh at all. The mids are great. It's just a really nice sounding amp that'll, at 20 watts, it'll, unless you're listening to, heavy metal with just constant pumping bass, I think it would be fine for any kind of music. And to get the vinyl off, use a heat gun. Most of the covers that I've seen are vinyl wrap. Some of them might be real wood. If they're real wood, you can just sand the finish off, and then the veneer will stick straight to it. But most of them are vinyl, so you want to just heat it up. I don't know where I've got this. Not too hot, not hot enough to melt it, but hot enough to loosen up the glue. Okay, now that the vinyl's off there, we need to sand it up a little bit. I'll start with some 120. This is some really cool sanding blocks I got. They take a hook and loop sanding sheet for a orbital sander, which is kind of cool. Anyway, I start with that. And just kind of stuff this up. So the 3M veneer will stick on here well. You want to keep it flat, don't round over the edges. Kind of get some of the bumps and surface glue off. It's fine if the glue's on here. Sometimes if it's too much, I'll put a clear coat of water-based varnish over it, and that'll help the 3M stick better. But in this case, it looks like it does stick pretty good on this type of glue that's under the vinyl. I'm going to restain this. And then you got some little gashes in here. I don't know if that shows up on the camera. Little gash in there. We'll fill that with some wood filler. A little bit missing here. We'll fill that. Square up that corner. Little gash there. The 3M sticky back veneer comes in, I got it in a 2-foot by 4-foot sheet. It comes rolled up like this, really tight in the box. And yesterday I laid it out with some weights on it to get it to flatten out. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this down the center so we can have this other piece easier to work with. And I use this little Terrorist plain hijacker blade. Anyway, it has a little ends you can break off to, and I was using this yesterday. You just break off the ends. Oh, there's already one. Grab it there, break it off. You have a fresh new point. As you can see, it still wants to curl up a little bit, but at least now it's workable. Okay, as you can see, the sheet has these kind of this is little pieces that are glued together to make one big sheet. You can't see the joint, but you can see it in the pattern. But you see these, it has these knot patterns, so I'm going to use those as the center of the top of the case. And the way we do that, let me zoom in a little bit here. No, let's keep it out. So I'm going to take this and center it over these knots, which is about right there. About 17 and a half, 8 and a half. So we're right there, we're centered right there. And I like to use a really soft lead mechanical pencil to mark on the wood very lightly so we can erase it off. And always erase it. Don't try and sand it off. If you sand it off, it'll smudge the lead into the grain of the wood. So you erase it off. And what I want to do, we've got this centered. A little mark there. You know where our center is. I want to have a 1/2 inch overlap all the way around. So we'll measure it 1 inch here. That'll give us a 1/2 inch on each side. And we can mark the other side using case. And we want to go 1/2 inch around the other side. And then to get the sides, I want the grain, you know, when it wraps around, I want the grain of the wood to match. So we'll just turn it up. I marked 1 inch. I'll put a 1 inch mark here and here. We'll line this up. And then we can get our cut mark on the other side. And do the same thing on this side. Where we were, our cut mark's there, 1 inch away. So we have the 1/2 inch overlap on each side. And just mark it like that. Put the little lines on there so I can see it against the grain easier. And of course we're going to have to do these little edges too. A few important tips about cutting is when you can see we've got the centerpiece. I don't know if you can see the marks on here, but we have some light pencil lines, center, left, and right. And I put little arrows to mark the front so we keep the grain lined up. And like that. When you cut this, you start on the end. And of course this side will be able to be used for another one. I use this straight edge, but I glued a little, epoxied a little thing on it so I don't slip with the knife and cut my finger. Don't want to get any red stains on the wood. The first cut with your sharp blade is just score it very lightly to start to cut the grain. If you go too deep, the knife will tend to wander. So use several, medium pressure cuts. And as you get through there, you can start going a little deeper. That way, a couple things, it won't tear the fibers of the veneer, and the knife will tend not to wander as easily. There we go. And you really have to be careful when you're cutting, along the grain, because then the grain will try to pull the knife also. So another reason to go very light. And then I'll do a couple more on camera. I'm sure Mark Mayer has a much better way of doing this, but this is how I used to work in a furniture refinishing shop back in the day, and so we've done quite a bit of this veneer. And this 3M sticky back stuff is actually quite amazing. It lasts forever. It's so much easier than contact cement and making such a mess. And the smell. Anyway, that's the cutting. Go ahead and jump to the next step. Okay, in starting, you want to start on the edges, not on the top. You want the edges first, then the sides, then the top. Just so if somebody pulls something across it, it doesn't try and pull that off. Since this is going to be really hard to trim off, I lined up one side with the bottom. And then to get this stuck a little bit, we want to give it some compression. I'm not doing the corners. Now we want to trim the corner. Let's trim the top off first. The way you trim the top is using the knife. And tricky part here, you don't want to scratch the top, so you put this in, hold this down, and bend this into it. In the same way you cut the stuff when it's loose, you just want to give it medium, light to medium pressure, so you don't go off the mark. Then we're going to cut the 45s on here. So these are 45'd together. Use a small little square. And make sure that that's straight. Get right in here into the corner. Make sure it's flat. Do the same thing on the other side. Here. It's a little bigger, but it doesn't matter. Oh, and also, you want to be careful when you're using the ends. Both sides of the sheet are going to have a little 1/4 of an inch that don't have any glue on them. And so you want to be careful not to use that. I guess you could glue it down if you have to. And this one we do the same way. These could have been quite a bit thinner, but it's really hard to cut them thin. They tend to wiggle around. And we want to line it up there and line it up with the inside. Get started. Here we are. So I don't tear it off and go ahead and cut it. I'm pushing down on this to hold it to the table so it doesn't want to move around. It's so thin it may move around a little bit. Sweet. I forgot to mention, these ends and sides were fraying a little bit, so I just ran some super glue in there and pushed it in just to strengthen those edges so they don't bend over easily if it gets a little abuse. Anyway, so then we'll just do the same thing on the other side. You've seen that once. We'll go on to the sides. That's just the paper right there. You can see the paper behind it. And now we can use the file.
Surely it's a collection of small.
And you don't want it flat on there. You want it on just a little bit, maybe a 3 or 4 degree angle, something like that, and push towards where this is glued. And you can see it works much better than the razor knife. And then when that line disappears, you know you've got it right. Edge of the file will get full of sawdust, so you get a little file comb. Clean it off.
put it to you, of a coherent and a cooperative society. Dare I even suggest to you a healthy and right nationalism, because I think such a thing does exist. The terms will be complex. And there are many reasons, I think, to prefer subsidiarity over unilateral centralised management. It seems to me self-evident, really, that central governments and bureaucracies are usually ill-equipped to directly solve local problems. They are far removed, usually, in understanding and sympathy, and sometimes geography from the local issue, to ensuring that these associations can maintain fidelity to their own principles of operation. Now, we often think of society
This way I'm not pushing down, I'm only pushing down when I come back.
The conditions needed for social thriving. And the horizontal questions might include, how do we relate to one another as citizens? Do we see our fellow citizens as mere competitors for finite resources and status, and individuals whom we have rights claims against? For subsidiarity work, people are disengaged. I understand why many of them feel they're not wanted in the public square.
That side. I'll do the other side off camera, and then we'll do the top.
We are needed in the public square.
So if you're careful, you know, you can get the grain lines matched up really nicely on the sides and the top, so it looks like, you know, just like the vinyl, like one wrapped piece of wood. And I think I mentioned I'd, you know, break the corners. I've already done this. Break a little point off a little bit, so you don't get stabbed on it. Oh, also something that's kind of important when you're finishing the lines. I think you can see the lines that the arrows and stuff that I put on here. You want to erase those. Don't. If you sand the lead will, you know, get smudged into the grain and it'll leave a little smudge. So you want to erase the marks. Put on it. If your eraser gets dirty, you can just sand it off. The marks we have. Oh, we have some marks on the side. And then for final sanding, I just hand sand it. This is some 320 garnet paper. Oh, made in Poland. How about that? And I just fold it over and use it by hand. You don't want to use a machine on this. The veneer is so thin, it will go right on through. It's already sanded really well from the factory. You know, they sand it with, I think, a 320. So you want to sand it one time. Just not much at all. Okay. And a few tips on finishing. I use a water base finish. It's General Finishes dye stain. Yeah. Oh, let me pull this out. I use General Finishes water-based dye stain. This is a medium brown that I thin out with reducer. You could use water, but it's not going to work as well. So I use this same company reducer. I reduce it down about, what is it? I reduce it down, medium brown, 2 ounces of dye stain. So 2-to-1 dye stain and reducer to get the color that I like, which is about, this says it's medium brown, but it's actually really dark, especially on the walnut because it's already dark. So we're going to, I guess, be a light brown now, but on the walnut it's going to look like a medium brown. Anyway, that's it for my refinishing process for a receiver case. And my thanks, I want to give a shout out to Mend It Mark YouTube. Mark is an awesome builder, and if you haven't seen his channel yet, it's Mend It Mark on YouTube. You know, MENDITMARK, and just some awesome information. He also has a private group that I'm a member of. It's called Mend It Like Mark, where we can ask questions, and a couple hundred people in there, and some really knowledgeable folks that you know, can help you when you get stuck, or if you're just learning and getting started. It'd be a great place to get into this hobby or business. Anyway, again, I just wanted to give back to the community that's given me so much, all the help I've gotten from fellow YouTubers and people on the internet on how to do this. It's kind of a dying art, but anyway, that's all I got.